All right, thank you for staying with us. And it's still about these sports, the menace of out-of-school children, and especially with what former President Olusegun Obasanjo said in Bauchi at the weekend. Very briefly, I'd like you to just take a look about what he said in Bauchi State, and then the conversation will continue.
But let me emphasize what we want to do. Yes, human capacity building is very important. Education and human capacity building. World Bank says we have over 20 million children who should be in school that are not in school. For a population of about, what, 220, 230 million. So that is 10% of our population that should be in school that are not in school. Governor, Your Royal Highnesses, brothers and sisters, that is recruitment for future Boko Haram. Nobody needs to tell us that. Apart from being that 10% of our population are not being equipped to develop their innate ability, innate capacity to be able to serve themselves, their family, their community, we are also preparing them to be recruited in 10, 12, 15 years.
That was former President Olusegun Matthew Okikiola Obasanjo. We are being joined right now by former Director, Distance Learning Center, the University of Ibadan, and currently the Deputy Vice Chancellor Academics of Achievers University, Professor Oyesoji Aremu. He joins us virtually. Good morning, Prof.
Good morning, and thank you for inviting me.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Yeah, very quickly, let's get straight into it. What do you make of that speech by former President Olusegun Obasanjo? You are somebody that is big on security. You're a university don. You do that. And of course, your forte is education and security. So what do you make of that statement?
Thank you so much. The statement by the former president, Chief Olusegun Obasanjo, was anything new. Yeah, I must say that what he said was the obvious, and that is exactly what is happening in Nigeria. At least that is our reference this time around. So what the former president said, again I repeat, is nothing new. It's what we see every day. It's what we see when we travel, when we go about. And let me quickly say, and let me interrogate this. The statistics he quoted, I would say it's even more than that. He made reference to the World Bank. Then UNICEF has another statistics talking about this, which is even more than 20 million out of school children that the former president quoted. Then again, we look at the population of Nigeria again, that's another thing. We are not too sure. People just begin to guess that this is probability that our population is this. Of course, if you look at this, for me, it's not about even the population of Nigeria. It's about the number of out-of-school children. And actually, I agree with him, and I've been able to say this in several fora, that these children that are not in the school, while their peers are in the school, then we are sitting on a time bomb. It's not only in the north, because the speech, his address was in the north. It's not only in the north. Let's come back to the southwest. In fact, there was a statistic sometime about 2 years ago. We talk about even the southwest, and also state has the highest number of out-of-school children. And of course, there's no point arguing this. If you travel along roads in Osun State, coming from Ife to Ikire, go to Eba, you see them hawking and all those things. So we are talking of what is obvious. If you go along Akure Road, many roads in Nigeria and in Southwest in particular, then in the cities also, when you go on in the cities, you also see them doing all these things. And again, it's not about the children. Right now, I'm not talking about profiling them where they are from, whether from the east, west, or north, or south. We talk of Nigerian children that are supposed to be in the school. And when their counterparts, their peers, are receiving teaching and learning, they are there somewhere hawking, one thing or the other. And for that very reason, we are just beginning to prepare for another future that could be gloomy when it comes to the issue of insecurity in this country. So the former president was right, absolutely right and correct.
This is a situation that we get any sane person worried. Let's start from here because you have mentioned Osun State. Professor, you superintended the Osun Education Summit last year. And many persons will say, what did you find out? You didn't just superintend that. You have been around for a while. You have been in education. You're a professor. But by the way, let's speak about the Osun Education Summit, just like any other summit in the Southwest. And you have said it as well. It's a known fact. Osun has the highest out-of-school children in education in the whole of the Southwest. What did you find out? What are the predisposing factors to this? What are the reasons?
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, thank you for making reference to Osun Education Summit held last year, August. Of course, the committee went out to really find out what happened. And in our report, we so recommended in our report some of the factors, talking about causative factors, has to do with poverty. I must say this. It's not that education is not free in the state. Education is free in the state. Even in spite of the fact that education is free in the state, some parents cannot afford those basic things that those children need to take to school. That is one. Then some parents also believe that they should use their children for trade or for something or the other. In fact, at that point in time, the children are taking up the position of the parents as the sponsor of the parents, as the body or as individuals that become the breadwinners of the family. When the mother or the father is elsewhere doing one thing or the other, that child, that girl, that boy is somewhere else working or doing something to be able to feed or probably to take care of the parent. I'm even talking of parents that are very strong physically, mentally, and emotionally. But that is one. Another thing is that it's a culture that is fast developing in our environment. That people say, no, you have to let you do this. We are not saying we should not train children to respect the dignity of labor, but we should be able to do this partly on weekends, either to do things or the other, not during the weekdays when their peers are in school or receiving teaching and learning. That's one. Number three, we also discovered that some of our schools, I don't know what is happening now, of course, it's just a year plus. Most of our schools are not inviting. Let me say this. In other words, they are not so much receptive to learning. And for that very reason, those children see no reason going there to go and receive teaching and learning. For that very reason, if you go there and there's nothing happening for you, we discovered then, let me say this, in some of our schools in Osun State, you go to a school, you see just a teacher and probably a headmaster or a principal in a whole school, and you see children. So what would two people do, two individuals, school personnel do, either the headmaster or the teacher do, in a school where you have probably, how I put it, a sizable number of school children? That is one. Another thing has to do with even accessing the school is a problem. When you cannot access school, this is the rainy season, and the child has to probably access school, and you cannot access that school due to one fight or the other. Of course, when he gets old, don't sit at home. You have to do something to go and do this. So those are some of the factors that we identified during the Osun Education Summit. Before we even had the final summit, and submitted our reports.
Interesting one there. And by the way, for many persons who might think possibly these figures are elitist in nature, the jury is in the open. And you made mention of some particular roads. You know, when you go to many major markets, you see them there. Motor parks, you see them hawking there. Some of them are not even hawking, they are begging. There are some young persons that they beg. You know, they just beckon at you and say, can I have something? Can I eat something? And these are some of the things, you know, there is juvenile delinquency, that one on one side, but you just see them everywhere in Iwo Road in Ibadan, you know, Futa Road in Akure, somewhere in Oshogbo here. The Lagos-Ibadan Expressway is a big sample for all of these. And, you know, let me stay with the Southwest. You know, there's this particular assumption that the people of the Southwest are elitist when it comes to education. They give people the education, I mean, their children, no matter what, in Ekiti, in Ondo, you see professors. Is it that times are changing, or the poverty education is making people to drop some of these values, or it was just an assumption, by the way?
Thank you so much. It's not an assumption. That is the fact. If you in fact, that dates back to even to before the independence in 1960 and the independence period too. Thank God for leaders like Chief Femi Ojo. May God bless his soul in heaven. And for that very reason, if not for what he did, of course, talking about free education, I'm talking of many individuals in the Southwest who would not probably seen the four wall of the classroom. Thank God for that. Then later in the Second Republic, we also have some governors in the state who also keen to that vision and so on and so forth. So it's not an assumption. Southwest, comparatively, I must say, far outshine other regions in Nigeria. But that said, I must say that kind of fortune we have there is fast dwindling. You know that what we cannot begin to say this again. Now I'll give you this let me put it now. This assumption.
Yeah.
And of course, back with facts. If you look at the result of WAEC and NECO the last couple of years, children from the Southwest are no longer doing well. When you compare them with children from the Southeast, they are doing better than what we have, than the children in the Southwest. It shows that something is happening to our education system in the Southwest, and we need to do something about it. If we don't do something about it, it means as time goes on, maybe the next 10 years or so, Southwest will lose that position to states like South and Southeast. I'm not referring to the north, that part of the country. So it's an illusion that is fast going before us, and we are not doing anything about it. And for the fact that people are not doing anything about it, that's why you see more of these children begging for arms, hawking, or doing one thing or the other, and they are not in school. And their parents are also supporting this one way or the other. Say, oh, don't worry about this. After all, you can make a living without going to school.
Yeah. You know, let's speak to, you know, my earlier guest. I asked him about priority, really, especially from people in government. These days, you see governors rather buy exotic cars for traditional rulers, and this is by no means desecrating the traditional institutions, but you see a state that is struggling educationally. The question is, how many of these states will really stick to the 15% budgetary allocation that is meant for education, according to UNESCO, or United Nations rather? Many, even the federal government, have not gotten to that level, but rather take the money and buy cars for assembly members, buy cars for traditional rulers, even at the federal level, use the money to pay for people's pilgrimage, you know, something that should have been private, and the education is suffering. And this is part of this. How do we make this a priority? How can the citizen, that's my question, how can we, the people, play a part in holding our leaders accountable to force them to make education a priority?
Well, thank you so much. We cannot force them. I think I want to say that the government, our people in government, should note this very well, that education is the key. It is the engine. And it is the fact, it is the lubricant that we need to really hold the system, the society. If you don't do this, thing will continue to nosedive. By the time the system begins to nosedive, we begin to have issues in this country. Again, I repeat, we need not force them, They should know that this is the thing they need to do. Of course, you said so much, many things about what they do, where they spend money. I will say this, what do you call it? Misplaced priority. How, because you spend so much on this and that. Well, what matters?
Yeah.
Talking about the school environment, talking about education, talking about this, when government is not doing much, I will say much about it. Of course, they allocate budget, they do this, but even the budget so allocated, how much of this that at the end of the year that really factor into taking care of our schools in Nigeria? You get to some schools, you just begin to shake your heads. Is this a primary school? Is it a secondary school? And as I said the other time here, that this is also creeping into university education in Nigeria. And we are having problems like this. As long as we have this problem like this, we can't get the best from our students. We can't get them to get to school. Let me clearly say this. One of the factors that really propel, motivate children to go to school is the school status. Is the school status. If you take your child to a school and the school looks not too good, the child will say, so sorry, mommy, daddy, I don't want to come to this school. Even if you force him to be in that school, learning will not take place. Because for learning to take place in education, then there must be reinforcing environment. As long as the environment is not reinforcing, learning will not take place. You expend money in this and that area, whereas we are supposed to expend money, you don't do it. And we expect our children to be in school. We expect them to do well, they will not do well, and they will not be in school.
All right. I understand, Prof, that you have to run, but please let me ask this question. I will take it as your final shot. What do we do? I understand the education summit that was held in Osun State last year. There were a couple of recommendations that you made. And what do we do exactly? This is my question, so that we just don't keep reading out these figures and we are just identifying the problems without solution. What are those practical steps? Perhaps part of the recommendation of last year, show education summit, or as a nation in general, so that we have a nation that we are proud of, who places premium. Because when we are talking about our school children, we have some children who have never been to the four walls of schools. We have some that will start primary, they won't finish. Some will start secondary, they won't finish. The ratio of boys to girls dropping out of school, that's another conversation. But what do we do, sir?
Yeah, thank you so much. Again, you made reference to the report of Oyesoji last year. I will only take two recommendations from that report, and I will say it. One of the recommendations on how to cope out of school children was that the government should have the school marshals again. We have the Peace Corps. In fact, they met because they engaged because we invited them to the summit. If the government should be able to bring this back, the school marshal, to be able to go around in Osun State, get these children who are not in school back to school, get their parents, invite their parents, sanction their parents, they will begin to have the reduction in the number of out-of-school children in Osun State, at least, and in a way also in Nigeria. That is one. We also recommended that we categorize schools in Osun State into three. First generation school, second generation school, and the third generation school. We know that it's huge talking about all this infrastructural deficit in our school, but we advise the government to take schools one by one. Go to the first generation school, probably in the senatorial district. What can you do about that school? When you finish with that, go to the second generation school, do something about that. Go to the third generation school, and within 4 years or probably whatever number of years, government will be able at least to remediate the infrastructural deficit we have in our schools. Those are part of the recommendation, out of many recommendations we have. And government should take to this, I believe, as much as possible, we now begin to have a kind of a situation in which we have it better in our schools in Osun State. Then reduce the number of out-of-school children again in the state.
All right. Deputy Vice Chancellor, Academics, Achievers University in Ondo State. It's always a pleasure speaking with you, sir.
Thank you so much. It's my pleasure. Thank you so much.
All right. These will be where we take hold a break today to return tomorrow. But then education, education, education. and the priority we place on it as a people, as a nation. Let me take this as my parting shot, because it will appear like our leaders doesn't know what to do, or sometimes they don't want to do what they have to do, or sometimes they don't place a priority. But I beg to differ, really, because if actually they don't place a priority, a premium on education, most of them will not have their children abroad, where they think the education is better, where they think the duration will not be interrupted, the session will not be interrupted. You take them to Cambridge, to Oxford, to Leeds, to many of these universities, and because they know quality is what matters, so they are abstracted to go and enjoy, and they come back here, and leave the children of the masses, your children, to just scavenge or whatever is available. The ASU can go on strike, if they like. SANU can go if they like. Agreements will be made since 2009. ASU have been talking about agreements that have been made with them till 2024. Many of those agreements have not been done, and ASU have declared a deadline again to say in the next coming days, if something is not done, we will go on strike again. And many of our leaders and our children, have been affected by this. Maybe a couple of them have their children here, but what is the population to that? So I beg to say, maybe it is not true that the leaders don't place education on priority. They just don't place it when it has to do with the generality of the people. When it has to do with them, their children are in the UAE, they're in India, they're in London, they're in Washington, enjoying the best of education. But just as Prof said, and many of our, analysts to say, history, posterity we judge. But before posterity does that, we will hold them accountable and exactly what we will do. And this is an ongoing matter. Please, we are not asking for much. 15% is the budgetary allocation by United Nations, and we should please do that instead of engaging in ventures that had virtually nothing apart from political patronage. And I'm talking to our leaders and parents as well. Please do whatever you have to do. Times are hard. That is a fact. But you have a duty. You owe your children that duty to go all the way for them. Whatever you can afford, talking about levels of education, you should please give your children that. And may God help you. And may God help and bless the Federal Republic of Nigeria. That'll be the program for today. Please do well to visit our YouTube channel at Western Spring TV. And of course, to see exciting programs, especially the recap of this program. Femi Ojo is my name. Keep safe and be alive.